The laughter started the moment Lord Hartington walked away. I stood frozen in the centre of Lady Pemberton's garden party, surrounded by 300 of England's most influential aristocrats, watching the man I had been promised to since childhood turn his back on me as if I were nothing more than a servant who had forgotten her place. "I am afraid I must decline," he had said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Miss Thornwood is not what I expected. The arrangement my father made was a mistake, and I see no reason to honor it." Not what he expected. Those 4 words hung in the air like a sentence of death. I knew what he meant. Everyone knew what he meant. I was not beautiful enough. Not wealthy enough. Not connected enough. My father had been a baron who had saved the previous Earl of Hartington's life during the war, earning a promise that his daughter would marry into the family. But that promise had been made to a dead man, and his son saw no value in honoring it. Especially not for a plain, unremarkable girl with nothing to recommend her but a dusty old title and a crumbling estate. The whispers started immediately. "Poor thing. Did you see his face? Absolute disgust. Well, one cannot blame him. Look at her. No dowry, no connections, and that dress." I wanted to run. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to flee, to escape this nightmare, to find somewhere dark and quiet where I could fall apart in peace. But my feet would not move. My legs had turned to stone, and I could only stand there, exposed, humiliated, while the cream of English society watched my ruin with barely concealed delight. This was the end. The end of my prospects, my reputation, my future. No man would marry me now, not after such a public rejection. I would return to my crumbling estate, live out my days in poverty and obscurity, and die alone, forgotten by everyone who had ever pretended to care about me. I could feel the tears building behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I would not give these vultures the satisfaction of seeing me cry. I would stand here with my head held high, and I would endure this moment, and then I would. Miss Thornwood. The voice came from behind me. Deep, authoritative, cutting through the whispers like a blade through silk. I turned and found myself face to face with the Duke of Ashworth. He was tall, easily 6 feet, perhaps more, with broad shoulders and a presence that seemed to draw all the light in the garden toward him. His hair was dark, touched with silver at the temples, and his eyes were the color of winter ice, sharp and penetrating and utterly unreadable. The Duke of Ashworth. The most powerful man in England. The recluse who never attended social functions, who had not been seen in society for nearly a decade, who was rumored to be everything from a madman to a murderer to a monster hiding from the world. And he was standing directly in front of me. "Your Grace," I managed, my voice barely a whisper. I could not help but overhear Lord Hartington's declaration. His voice was cold, precise, each word weighted with meaning. I found it most illuminating. Illuminating, Your Grace? Indeed. It illuminated exactly the kind of man he is, which is to say, no man at all. His ice-blue eyes flicked toward Hartington, who had frozen mid-conversation across the garden. A gentleman honors his commitments. A gentleman does not humiliate a lady in public to salvage his own pride. The whispers had stopped. Everyone was staring now at me, at the Duke, at the impossible scene unfolding before them. "With your permission," the Duke continued, extending his arm toward me, "I would be honored to escort you to refreshments. This garden party has become rather tedious, and I find myself in need of intelligent conversation." I stared at his arm. Then I stared at his face. "Your Grace, I do not understand. There is nothing to understand. I am offering you my arm. You may accept or decline as you see fit." A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. Though I suspect accepting would do rather more damage to Lord Hartington's evening than declining. I looked at Hartington. His face had gone pale. Everyone was watching. Everyone was waiting to see what I would do. And suddenly, I understood. The Duke of Ashworth, the recluse, the legend, the most powerful man in England, was offering me his protection. His endorsement. His arm, in full view of every person who had just watched me be humiliated. If I took it, everything would change. I took it. "Thank you, Your Grace," I said, placing my hand on his arm. "I would be delighted." As we walked together through the garden, I could feel the world shifting around us. The whispers had transformed from mockery to astonishment. The faces that had looked at me with pity now watched with something closer to awe. "Why?" I asked quietly, as we moved away from the crowd. "Why would you do this?" "Because Lord Hartington is a fool," the Duke replied. "And because I despise fools." "That is not an answer." "No." He glanced down at me, and something flickered in those ice-blue eyes. "It is not. But it is all the answer I am prepared to give at present." I should have pressed him. I should have demanded to know what game he was playing, what he wanted, what purpose this strange intervention served. Instead, I simply walked beside him and wondered what I had just gotten myself into. The days following the garden party were chaos. I returned to my aunt's townhouse, the modest residence where I had been staying during the season, to find it besieged by callers. Cards arrived by the dozen. Invitations that had been conspicuously absent now appeared in overwhelming numbers. Everyone, it seemed, wanted to know about the girl the Duke of Ashworth had chosen to champion. "This is madness," my aunt declared, sorting through the pile of correspondence. "Absolute madness. Lady Jersey is requesting your presence at Almack's. The Countess of Devonshire wants you for her musicale. Even Princess Esterhazy has sent a note. I do not understand it." "Of course you do not understand it. You are young." My aunt set down the cards and fixed me with a shrewd gaze. "The Duke of Ashworth has not appeared in society for nearly a decade. His endorsement is worth more than gold. When he offered you his arm, he told the entire ton that you are under his protection. But why would he do that? I am nothing to him." That is the question everyone is asking. My aunt leaned forward. "What happened between you? What did you say to him?" "Nothing." I said nothing. He simply appeared and offered his arm. Men like the Duke of Ashworth do not simply appear. They do not offer their protection without reason. She studied my face. "There must be something. Something he saw in you, something he wants from you. I cannot imagine what." But even as I said it, I wondered. The Duke had been watching me before the incident with Hartington. I remembered seeing him across the garden, his ice-blue eyes fixed on me with an intensity that had made me uncomfortable. I had assumed he was simply observing the crowd, as recluses do when forced into social situations. Now I was not so certain. Whatever his reasons, my aunt said firmly, "You must take advantage of this opportunity. The season is not over. Your prospects have changed dramatically. You must make the most of it. You want me to use the Duke's protection to find a husband. I want you to secure your future. Your father left you nothing but debts and a title. If you do not marry well, you will have nothing." She softened slightly. "I know this is difficult. I know the season has not been kind to you. But this is a second chance, Cordelia. Do not waste it." I nodded, though my heart was heavy. A second chance. But at what cost? The first invitation I accepted was to Lady Blackwood's ball. It was a calculated choice. Lady Blackwood was known for hosting the most exclusive events of the season, and her guest list included only the highest reaches of society. If I was to make the most of my unexpected elevation, this was the place to do it. I arrived in a gown borrowed from my aunt, a deep blue silk that was finer than anything I had ever worn. My hair had been styled by a maid who actually knew what she was doing, and for the first time in my life, I felt almost beautiful. "Miss Thornwood." Lady Blackwood greeted me at the entrance, her eyes gleaming with curiosity. "How delightful that you could join us. We are all so eager to know you better." "Thank you, Lady Blackwood. The honor is mine. The Duke of Ashworth mentioned you most particularly when I spoke with him yesterday. He expressed hope that you would be well received." I felt a jolt of surprise. "The Duke mentioned me?" "Oh, yes. He was most insistent that I extend you every courtesy." Lady Blackwood smiled, a knowing expression that made me uncomfortable. "It seems you have made quite an impression on His Grace." I did not know what to say to that. Fortunately, I did not have to say anything, because at that moment, the crowd parted and the Duke of Ashworth himself appeared before me. He looked different than he had at the garden party. More polished, more deliberately composed. His evening clothes were impeccable, his bearing regal, his expression carefully neutral. But his eyes were the same ice-blue and penetrating, seeing far more than they should. "Miss Thornwood." He bowed. "I am pleased to see you here, Your Grace." I curtsied. I did not expect to see you. I was told you rarely attend social functions. I rarely do. But I find myself making exceptions lately. He offered his arm. Would you honor me with the first dance? The first dance. At the most exclusive ball of the season. With the Duke of Ashworth. I was acutely aware of every eye in the room turning toward us. The whispers started immediately: speculation, envy, astonishment. The girl who had been publicly rejected 3 days ago was now being claimed by the most powerful man in England. Your Grace, I said quietly, as we took our positions on the dance floor, I must ask you again. Why are you doing this? Dancing with you? All of it. The garden party. Speaking to Lady Blackwood. Whatever you are doing, there must be a reason. The music began, and we started to move. There is always a reason, Miss Thornwood. For everything. He guided me through the steps with practiced ease. But reasons are not always simple. Sometimes they are layered, complex, impossible to explain in a single conversation. Then give me the simple version. The simple version. He considered this. Very well. I saw a young woman being publicly humiliated by a man who was not worthy to polish her shoes. I saw an opportunity to correct an injustice and simultaneously embarrass a fool. I took it. That does not explain why you continue to champion me. No. It does not. He smiled a real smile, the first I had seen from him. But you asked for the simple version. And the complicated version? The complicated version requires time. More time than a single dance allows. His eyes met mine. Would you be willing to grant me that time, Miss Thornwood? To learn the complicated version? I should have said no. I should have thanked him for his kindness and kept my distance from this enigmatic, powerful, dangerous man. Instead, I heard myself say, yes, Your Grace. I would. Over the following weeks, the Duke of Ashworth became a constant presence in my life. He called at my aunt's townhouse, always at proper hours, always with appropriate chaperonage. He escorted me to events, danced with me at balls, sat beside me at concerts and plays. He was never inappropriate, never possessive, never anything but perfectly correct. But beneath the correctness, there was something else. Something intense. Something focused. Something that made me feel as if I were the only person in any room we occupied together. You are being courted, my aunt declared one morning, her voice a mixture of astonishment and delight. The Duke of Ashworth is courting you. He is being kind. Kind. Cordelia, the man has attended more social functions in the past month than he has in the past decade. He has danced with no one but you. He has refused invitations from the most beautiful women in England. She shook her head. This is not kindness. This is pursuit. But why? What could he possibly want with me? I do not know. But does it matter? My aunt leaned forward. He is the Duke of Ashworth. He is wealthy beyond imagination, powerful beyond measure, and he has chosen you. Whatever his reasons, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. You want me to accept his pursuit. Without knowing why he is pursuing me, I want you to keep your options open. I want you to be practical. She softened. I know you do not trust easily, Cordelia. After what Hartington did, after everything you have endured, I understand why. But not every man is a villain. Some of them are simply complicated. Complicated. That was certainly one word for the Duke of Ashworth. I thought about our conversations, the glimpses of the man beneath the ducal exterior. He was intelligent, well-read, surprisingly witty when he chose to be. He listened when I spoke, really listened, as if my opinions mattered to him. But he was also guarded. Private. There were walls around him that I could not penetrate, secrets he was not willing to share. He has asked me to visit his estate, I said quietly. My aunt's eyebrows rose. His estate. Ashworth Hall. He says he wants to show me something. Something that will explain everything. And you want to go? I do not know what I want. I looked down at my hands. I am afraid. Of what? Of everything. Of trusting someone again. Of being disappointed again. Of discovering that this is all some elaborate game I do not understand. Those are reasonable fears. My aunt reached out and took my hand. But they are also the fears of a woman who has been hurt. And sometimes, to heal, you have to take risks. What if the risk destroys me? Then at least you will have tried. She squeezed my fingers. Go to Ashworth Hall, Cordelia. Learn what the Duke has to tell you. And then decide what you want. I nodded, though my heart was racing. I would go to Ashworth Hall. And I would learn the truth. Ashworth Hall was magnificent. It rose from the English countryside like a palace from a fairy tale, towers and turrets, gardens and grounds, a sprawling edifice that spoke of centuries of wealth and power. As my carriage approached, I felt a flutter of intimidation that I struggled to suppress. This was where the Duke of Ashworth lived. This could be where I might live, if I accepted whatever offer he was about to make. The thought was overwhelming. The Duke himself met me at the entrance, which surprised me. I had expected servants, formality, the distance that great men usually maintained. Instead, he was there, waiting, his expression more open than I had ever seen it. Miss Thornwood. He bowed. Thank you for coming. Thank you for inviting me, Your Grace. Please. He gestured toward the open doors. Come inside. There is much I need to show you. He led me through halls filled with portraits and tapestries, through rooms that spoke of history and heritage. I tried to absorb it all, but it was too much, too grand, too overwhelming, too far removed from the modest life I had always known. Finally, we arrived at a small study. It was more intimate than I had expected, warm, comfortable, filled with books and personal effects that spoke of actual use rather than display. This is my private sanctuary, the Duke said. Very few people have seen it. I am honored. Please, sit. He gestured to a chair by the fire. We have much to discuss. I sat, my heart pounding. He sat across from me, his ice blue eyes fixed on my face. I told you at Lady Blackwood's ball that my reasons for championing you were complicated, he began. I told you that understanding them would require time. I remember. I have decided that you deserve the truth. All of it. He paused. But first, I must ask, what do you know about my history? About why I withdrew from society? Very little, Your Grace. There are rumors, but I do not put stock in rumors. A wise policy. Most of the rumors are false. He leaned back. The truth is simpler, and sadder. 10 years ago, I was engaged to be married. Her name was Charlotte Hartington. She was Lord Hartington's sister. I felt a jolt of shock. Lord Hartington's sister? Yes. Before the wedding, I discovered that she had been carrying on an affair with another man. A man she had been seeing since before our engagement. I am so sorry. The discovery was devastating. But what happened next was worse. His voice grew cold. When I confronted Charlotte, she laughed at me. She told me I was a fool to believe she had ever loved me. She said she had only accepted my proposal for my title and my fortune. I could not imagine the pain of such a betrayal. I ended the engagement, he continued. Charlotte's family was furious. The Hartingtons had been counting on my wealth to save them from their debts. They retaliated by spreading vicious rumors about me. They told society that I had abused Charlotte, that I was unstable, that I was dangerous. But none of it was true. No. But truth rarely matters when lies are more entertaining. He smiled bitterly. I withdrew from society. I retreated to Ashworth Hall and vowed never to trust another person again. And yet here you are. Trusting me. Here I am. He met my eyes. When I saw you at that garden party, when I saw Hartington humiliating you the same way his family tried to humiliate me, I felt something I had not felt in years. What? Rage. And recognition. He leaned forward. You were alone, surrounded by people who wished you harm, and you did not break. You did not cry, did not run, did not give them the satisfaction of seeing you defeated. You stood there with your head held high, and you endured. I did not feel strong. Strength is not about feeling strong. It is about enduring when you have every reason to fall apart. His voice softened. I saw in you the same courage I once had. The courage I lost when Charlotte betrayed me. And I knew that I could not let Hartington destroy you the way his family tried to destroy me. I felt tears pricking at my eyes. That is why you championed me. That is part of it. He reached out and took my hand. But there is more. Over these past weeks, spending time with you, coming to know you, I have felt something I never expected to feel again. What? Hope. His ice blue eyes were warm now. Hope that perhaps I was wrong to close myself off from the world. Hope that perhaps there are still people worth trusting. Hope that perhaps. He paused. Perhaps I might have a second chance. A second chance at what? At love. He raised my hand to his lips and kissed it gently. I am not proposing yet, Miss Thornwood. I am not asking for your answer to a question I have not asked. But I want you to know my intentions. I want you to understand that this is not a game to me. What is it, then? The beginning of something real. He met my eyes. If you are willing. I looked at this man. This powerful, damaged, complicated man who had shown me kindness when he had every reason to remain cold. I thought about everything he had told me. About the betrayal he had suffered, the walls he had built, the courage it must have taken to open himself up again. I thought about my own walls, my own fears, my own reluctance to trust. And I made a decision. I am willing, I said. I am willing to try. The weeks that followed were a revelation. The Duke. Marcus, as he asked me to call him when we were alone, opened himself to me in ways that I never would have expected. He showed me his estate, his tenants, the work he did to improve the lives of those who depended on him. He told me stories of his childhood, his dreams, the man he had wanted to be before Charlotte's betrayal had changed him. And I, in turn, opened myself to him. I told him about my father. The Baron who had given everything for his country and received nothing but debts in return. I told him about my mother, who had died when I was young, and about the lonely years that followed. I told him about my fears, my hopes, the future I had dreamed of before Hartington crushed those dreams at the garden party. Marcus listened to everything. And somehow, sharing our pain made it lighter. I never thought I would trust anyone again, he told me one evening, as we walked through the gardens of Ashworth Hall. After Charlotte, I convinced myself that love was a weakness. That opening my heart to someone only gave them the power to destroy me. And now I understand that closing myself off was its own form of destruction. He stopped and turned to face me. You have changed me, Cordelia. You have shown me that there are still people worth trusting. That not everyone is like Charlotte. I am certainly not like Charlotte. No. You are nothing like her. He smiled. You are kind, and honest, and brave. You face the world with your head held high, even when it would be easier to hide. You see people as they truly are, not as they wish to appear. I have had to. When you have nothing, you cannot afford illusions. Perhaps that is what makes you so remarkable. He took my hands. Cordelia, I know I said I was not going to propose. I know I said I wanted to take things slowly, but I find that I cannot wait any longer. My heart began to race. Marcus, will you marry me? He dropped to one knee, right there in the garden, his eyes fixed on mine. Will you be my wife, my partner, my duchess? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that I am worthy of your trust? I looked at him. This man who had saved me from ruin, who had opened his heart to me despite every reason to keep it closed, who had shown me that love was possible even after betrayal. I thought about everything I had wanted: security, respect, a future that did not involve poverty and obscurity. But I also thought about something else. Something I had not expected to find. Happiness. Yes, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Yes, I will marry you. He rose and pulled me into his arms, holding me close, and I felt something I had not felt in a very long time. I felt safe. The announcement of our engagement was the sensation of the season. Everyone wanted to know how the Duke of Ashworth, the famous recluse, had fallen for the impoverished girl who had been publicly rejected by Lord Hartington. The gossips speculated wildly. Some claimed I had bewitched him, others insisted there must be some hidden scandal, still others suggested that the Duke was simply mad. I did not care what they said. I had found something real, something true, and no amount of gossip could take that away from me. But there was one confrontation I could not avoid. It came at Lady Jersey's summer ball, 2 weeks after the engagement was announced. I was standing with Marcus, accepting congratulations from a stream of well-wishers, when a familiar figure appeared before us. Lord Hartington. He looked different than I remembered, older, somehow, despite the short time that had passed. His face was pale, his expression strained, and there was something in his eyes that might have been desperation. Your Grace, he said, bowing to Marcus. Miss Thornwood. Lord Hartington. Marcus's voice was cold. I am surprised to see you here. I wish to offer my congratulations on your engagement. Hartington's gaze flickered to me, and to apologize for any misunderstanding that may have occurred at Lady Pemberton's garden party. Misunderstanding? I repeated. You publicly rejected me in front of 300 people. You told everyone I was not what you expected. That was not a misunderstanding. I was hasty. I realize that now. His voice dropped. Miss Thornwood, if I had known. If you had known that the Duke of Ashworth would intervene. I shook my head. You rejected me because you thought I had nothing to offer. You humiliated me because you believed there would be no consequences. The only thing that has changed is that you were wrong. I was wrong about many things. He looked at me with something that might have been genuine regret. I thought I wanted a wife who would bring me wealth and connections. I did not realize that what I truly needed was a wife with character and strength. You had your chance, Hartington, Marcus said quietly. You threw it away. That is not something you can undo with pretty words and belated apologies. I know. Hartington's shoulders slumped. I know I cannot undo it. But I hoped Miss Thornwood might at least understand that I recognize my mistake. I looked at this man who had hurt me so deeply. Who had made me feel worthless, invisible, unworthy of love. I could have been cruel. I could have savored his regret, twisted the knife, made him feel as small as he had made me feel. But I did not. I understand, I said quietly. And I hope you will learn from this, Lord Hartington. I hope you will think more carefully before you judge someone's worth by their circumstances rather than their character. He nodded, his face a mask of shame. And then he walked away. Marcus looked at me with something like admiration. You were kinder to him than he deserved. Perhaps. But cruelty would not have made me feel better. It would only have made me more like him. I took Marcus's arm. I would rather move forward than dwell in the past. That, he said softly, is why I love you. The wedding took place 3 months later. It was held at Ashworth Hall, a grand affair, attended by the highest reaches of society. Everyone who had ever mocked me, pitied me, or dismissed me was now clamoring for an invitation to watch me become a duchess. I found the irony deeply satisfying. But the wedding itself was not about revenge or vindication. It was about love. Marcus and I exchanged our vows in the chapel where his ancestors had been married for centuries. The words were ancient and sacred, but they felt new, a promise between two people who had found each other against all odds. I take you as my husband, I said, my voice steady. To love and to cherish, from this day forward. I take you as my wife, Marcus replied. To honor and to protect, until death do us part. When he kissed me, I felt tears streaming down my face. Tears of joy. Tears of gratitude. Tears for the girl I had been, the girl who had stood alone at a garden party, convinced that her life was over, and for the woman I had become. You are crying, Marcus murmured, as we turned to face the applauding crowd. Happy tears. Is that a thing? It is now. He laughed and pulled me close, and I knew with absolute certainty that I had made the right choice. The first year of our marriage was everything I had dreamed and more. Marcus was a devoted husband, attentive, affectionate, constantly surprising me with small kindnesses that showed how well he had come to know me. He remembered my favorite flowers, my preferred books, the foods I loved and the ones I despised. But more than that, he treated me as a partner. He consulted me on estate matters. He valued my opinions. He included me in decisions that affected our lives together. You have changed this place, he told me one evening, as we sat together in his study. Ashworth Hall feels different with you here. Different how? Warmer. More alive. He took my hand. I spent 10 years hiding in these walls, convinced that I would never be happy again. You have shown me that I was wrong. We have shown each other. I squeezed his fingers. I was just as lost as you were, Marcus. Just as afraid to trust, just as certain that love was not meant for me. And now I cannot imagine my life without you. He kissed me then, a kiss that spoke of love and gratitude and the promise of all the years to come. We were interrupted by a knock at the door. Your Grace, a servant announced. A letter has arrived. From Lord Hartington. Marcus's expression darkened. What does he want now? I took the letter and opened it. As I read, my eyebrows rose. He is announcing his engagement, I said. To Miss Arabella Thornton. He writes that our conversation at Lady Jersey's ball inspired him to look for a wife of character rather than fortune. And he expects us to care. I think he expects us to be pleased that he learned his lesson. I set down the letter. He also requests our blessing. And our presence at the wedding. Marcus looked at me. Do you want to go? Not particularly. But perhaps it would be the gracious thing to do. Gracious. He shook his head. You are a better person than I am, Cordelia. I still want to throttle him every time I see his face. That is why we balance each other. I smiled. You can want to throttle him while I maintain diplomatic relations with his family. A perfect partnership. The best kind. 5 years after that fateful garden party, I stood in the nursery of Ashworth Hall and watched my children sleep. There were 2 of them now, a boy named Alexander, who had his father's dark hair and my stubborn chin, and a girl named Elizabeth, who had somehow inherited the best features of both of us. They were perfect. They were everything. Marcus appeared in the doorway, watching me with a soft smile. You should come to bed. I know. I just wanted to look at them for a moment longer. He crossed the room and wrapped his arms around me from behind. You are an excellent mother, you know. You are an excellent father. We make a good team. The best team. I leaned back against him. Do you ever think about how different our lives might have been? If you had not come to my rescue at that garden party? Sometimes. But I prefer not to dwell on it. He kissed my temple. The past is the past. What matters is what we have built together. And what we will continue to build. Yes. He turned me to face him. Have I told you lately how much I love you? You tell me every day. Good. Because I mean it every day. He kissed me softly. You saved me, Cordelia. You gave me a reason to live again. I will spend the rest of my life being grateful for you. And I will spend the rest of mine being grateful for you. I smiled. Now take me to bed, Your Grace. We have a lifetime of happiness ahead of us, and I intend to enjoy every moment. He laughed and swept me into his arms. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that this was exactly where I was meant to be. 20 years after the garden party that had nearly destroyed me, I sat in the great hall of Ashworth Hall and watched my daughter being presented to society. Elizabeth was 18 now, beautiful, poised, everything I had never been at her age. She wore a gown of ivory silk, her dark hair styled elegantly, her expression a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She looks terrified, Marcus murmured beside me. She looks perfect. That too. He took my hand. Do you remember your own presentation? I try not to. I smiled wryly. I was certain everyone was laughing at me. I felt like an imposter, pretending to belong in a world that did not want me. And now I know that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I looked at our daughter, so confident and happy, so different from the girl I had been. We have given her a life I never could have imagined for myself. We have given both of them good lives. Marcus nodded toward Alexander, who was standing across the room, tall and handsome at 22. They will never know what it is like to feel unwanted. To feel like they do not belong. That is the greatest gift we could give them. One of many. He raised my hand to his lips. Thank you, Cordelia. For what? For everything. For giving me a second chance. For loving me despite my flaws. For building this life with me. I looked at this man, my husband, my partner, my love, and I felt my heart swell with emotion. Thank you for stepping forward, I said. At that garden party, when everyone was laughing, when I thought my life was over, you stepped forward and changed everything. I could not have done otherwise. I saw you, and I knew. Knew what? That you were the one I had been waiting for. He smiled. Even if I did not realize it at the time. We were both lost. We found each other. And we saved each other. I leaned my head against his shoulder, watching our daughter dance her first dance at her first ball. I love you, I said. I love you too. Always. 30 years after the garden party, I sat with my granddaughter on my knee and told her the story. Everyone laughed, I said. Everyone except one man. Grandfather. Grandfather. He stepped forward when everyone else stepped back. He offered me his arm when everyone else offered me pity. Why? Because he saw something in me that no one else saw. Because he recognized that strength is not about never falling, it is about getting up again. Because he believed that I was worth more than the circumstances that had brought me low. And you fell in love. Eventually. First we became friends. Then we became partners. And then, yes, we fell in love. My granddaughter considered this. Do you think there is someone like that for everyone? Someone who will step forward when everyone else laughs? I smiled, thinking of Marcus, now asleep in his study, older and grayer but still the man who had changed my life with a single gesture. I think there is someone for everyone, I said. But sometimes you have to be patient. Sometimes you have to endure the laughter before you find the person who will stand beside you. That sounds hard. It is hard. But it is also worth it. I kissed her forehead. Never give up hope, little one. Never let the world convince you that you are not worthy of love. Because you are. We all are. She hugged me tight. And I held her close, grateful beyond words for the life I had built, the life that had begun when everyone laughed and the Duke stepped forward. The life that had been worth every struggle, every tear, every moment of doubt. The life I would not trade for anything in the world. Subscribe to see what happens next. And comment where you're watching from. I would love to say hello to you, just to know how far our story is reaching across the world.